Greetings Captains, Gunship here. Hope you are doing well. Today we are going to talk about War Thunder's matchmaker and a few options to improve it. Improving the matchmaking is something that affects all players, regardless if you are playing tanks, fly planes or participate in naval battles. Good or bad matchmaking can significantly impact your enjoyment of the game. Will, for the sake of not spreading the net too widely, focus on examples from realistic battles only. So to summarize, what we're going to be looking at next is how does it work, what is the impact of the current system, current weaknesses, the last 5 years or so, and options to improve. First off, let's look at what battle rating actually is. So battle rating does not correspond with real life introduction dates, only the vehicle's in-game performance. Even if major technological imbalances exist among the vehicles in real life, the battle rating system allows War Thunder to remain balanced at all ranks by only matching vehicles with similar in-game performance against each other. Now, the similar in-game performance might be where some of us has a little beef with what similar actually means, but we'll get to that. It's also important to notice that the battle rating exists in steps of 0.3 or 0.4. Strictly speaking, this is 0.33 rounded to the nearest tenth and ranges between 1 and now 14. So matchmaking is done by the highest BR. So whatever your lineup is, the highest BR vehicle you have in that lineup is what the matchmaker use to do the battle. That's why you always try to do a balanced sort of lineup of planes or tanks or whatever it might be. And the matchmaker operates on two main conditions. Battles are formed of lineups within 1.0 BR of each other, and lineups can be matched against other lineups within the ±1 BR group. So in the example they give here, a 5.3 BR lineup could enter a battle with a BR range of 5.3 to 6.3, a so-called full up-tier. And all the lineups in the battle will have highest BRs between 5.3 and 6.3. Now, you could also end up with your 5.3 lineup as you are the highest BR, so therefore you are now in a full down tier, and you might see vehicles or lineups that start at 4.3. So far, so good. I think everyone understands that. They also have another little thing. They say the number of players on each team with BRs at the top of the BR range cannot exceed 4. I don't think that is strictly speaking always true. I seem to remember some games where I have seen nothing but Phantom 4S's on each side, but be that as it may, that is kind of what they say. When we look at this 1.0 BR of each other, it's a bit like going casino and buying poker money. There's sort of a conversion. Effectively, you're talking about 4 levels. So your 5.3 goes up to 6.3, yes, but there's 2 tanks in between. So there's 4 levels. So the spread is 4 levels, not really 1, as it's what they say. It's kind of playing on your mind a little bit. But that's how it works out. If you have a quick look at the lineups, or at least an example of lineups, this is what the tanks are with their 1.0 BR jump in between them. So I'm taking 1.7 going up to 2.7 and so forth, as you can see here. And I really wouldn't like to, for example, be the M3 Lee at 2.7 facing up against the Panzer 4H at 3.7. And there might be some of the others you will think is more comfortable than the others. But generally speaking, being in an up tier is not a pleasant experience, especially if you're also in the process of researching the modules for that tank, or you might even be a stock tank. In that case, it can be even harder. Looking at planes, again, you know, these planes goes up in BR, and for the untrained eye, they might be able to see some as propellers and some are jets, but those that knows a bit more knows it's all to do with the radar and the quality of the missiles and all the rest of it. And again, an up tier is not particularly fun. So when it comes to naval, things get even more tricky. And that's because in Naval, it's generally damage over time that kills the opponent. If you're doing in a plane, you might shoot a plane, and you can do that in any BR, or you might kill with a missile. Again, it's a one touch, and the opponent is dead, and you can sometimes be lucky. Whereas in Naval, the damage over time means that that luck is sort of taken away a little bit and averages out because you have an engagement. But there's none of these jumps here that are pleasant. Any ship you can see here as you're going up, you will only win 1 out of 10 times if you're lucky. Most of the time you will just be annihilated by the ship 1 BR higher than yourself. And that's maybe also one of the reasons why Naval is not so popular, because it's such a big jump up if you get uptiered. Then we have what I would say is a popular BR issue. And that is, if you, for example, if you look at the tanks here, obviously this is the Russians tech tree here, but you can see all the premium and event tanks that hovers in the 10.3, 10.7 area. And that means that that's popular for people to play. You know, the Russians are one of the most popular nations you can be. So if you have a tank that is a 9.3 or maybe a 9.7, the chances of you getting up-tiered into a 10.3 or 10.7 match is very high. So popular BRs sort of sucks in other BR rounds them, and that can sometimes be really unpleasant, especially because some of these vehicles are premium vehicles, so they come spaded. People have probably played them for a long time, so they know them well. It makes it extremely hard to play against. Again, with the planes, the F5C, I think it used to be 10.3, and so when you were in your 9.3, 9.7 plane, you had a tough time with the F5Cs. Then the Phantom 4S came along, and so if you were at BR11, again you would have a tough time, and quite often you'll be dragged in to the Phantom 2s. And again, it makes it quite unpleasant to play at that level, especially if you're trying to grind through the tech tree, because also at the higher BRs, it takes quite a few matches before you research a module. And again, that's not nice, and people, rightly so, dislike it. Last example is from Naval. You are in a 4.0 ship or 4.3 ship, or maybe you have the top of the coastal tree and you get dragged into games with 5.0 Moffats, which was extremely popular at one point and still is. You can see how many ships there is in the US lineup at 5.0. That's just the premium ones. So again, this is tough and not pleasant. And it shows up on various forums. This is just a few I could find, but don't have to read the small print here. It's all about people are having issues with up-tiering. True or false? So we should get a few myths out of the way, or at least my opinion on them. So first off, the matchmaker will try and group opposite teams into different nations. Yes, it will. Apart from in Naval, they take that away to try and make it quicker. The matchmaker will up-tier squads. Don't 100% know that, but it seems that way. It feels like that. I think I even said to people, I don't want to squad up because I got a boost on. I'd rather take my chances as a single player. And that's like fundamentally wrong that the game works in that way, because it should encourage team play. The matchmaker will try and match squads of similar size. And that's true, and that's why it probably also takes a bit of time to get a battle in it. If you are 3 or 4 man squad, it will try and do that in the name of fairness, and that does make sense. It's just not so fun if there's not another 4 or 3 man squad available on the other side. the matchmaker will give players with premium vehicles an advantage. I think that's a myth. I think that is what people would like to say, but I don't think that is true. I think that the premium vehicles we have might have more favorable BR ratings. That's probably where that's located at. The matchmaker will penalize good players by up-tiering. I also think that is hocus pocus, and I don't think that is true at all. It takes longer to get a battle as a squad. Yeah, for the reasons I just said, especially in Naval, you can sit there for half an hour and nothing happens. This goes against actually getting people to play in the first place. So if you look back on War Thunder for the last 5 years or so, first off, during the COVID years, the War Thunder player base really started to grow, which was great. I think War Thunder did a brilliant, not possibility stunt, but they allowed people, I think, for a month to get premium time for half price or something like that, and that really helped to grow the player base when people were just at home with maybe nothing to do. And then we had sort of like a bit of the dark ages where we had negative reviews, especially on Steam, and that was because of the game economy. It was too tight. So Steam got review bombed, and ultimately, after Guardian did a few U-turns, it resulted in a comprehensive roadmap of improvements, which I think only have stood the game in good stead and has been really positive, and I think also have helped to grow the game further. And then very lately, the dedicated server in China was turned off, and therefore people from that nation came in and played on the main servers, and that again has grown the overall player base. So a lot more people online now than there was 5 years ago. The numbers don't lie. So as I was making this video, Guardian was just sort of pumping out what 2024 looked like in numbers, and they were quite impressive, massive, big numbers. Peak concurrent users, 257,000, and then you could see how many aircraft and ground vehicles and naval vehicles were destroyed. And from those numbers, obviously, you can also see that naval is the least popular of the three different game modes or branches. I did a little calculation down the bottom left for you there. If you take the numbers rather than for over a whole year and divide them into days or hours or minutes or seconds, you can sort of get a different number that might make a bit more sense. So essentially, on average, 69 plane targets or aircrafts get destroyed. That probably means that the matchmaker has to make 2 or 3 teams of 32 every sort of 2 or 3 every second in order for things to sort of move around. So it certainly has to be quite a quick progress to match people up. So we are back to those 4 tanks I talked about earlier. And here's my suggestion. What happened if we lowered the BR spread based on the concurrent players online? Because the numbers no longer is 50,000 online. Certainly over the Christmas period, it's been more like near the 200,000. So let's say that the servers are probably unusually quiet and there's only 50,000 or less players online. Then maybe we'll keep the BR spread at 1.0. But if we have more than 50,000 people online, well, then there should be enough players there to lower that BR spread. Which means, an example with the tanks, if you were in the 5.3 tank, you would maximum meet a 6.0 opponent. Already be useful in a number of scenarios. Some people will say that's a medium up tier at the worst. That's better. At least that means that, you're 6.0 cruiser won't meet the Shorn Horse, and might meet a 6.7 battleship, but at least that's a better fight. More than 100,000 online could lower it even further to 0.3. So if you were the 5.7 Sherman, if that was you, if that was your max BR, well, in an up tier you would just see the 6.0s, and your down tier would be down to the 5.3. Still have plenty of vehicles to play against. So the issue about there's not enough variety to play against and so on, well, that's not true, because there's over 2,500 vehicles in the game. I mean, Gaiden is very proud of that fact. So there's plenty now. There's plenty of nations. It's not like we're really going to get bored. If there's more than 200,000 online, maybe it shouldn't be a thing. I think that would be okay for, let's say, planes, for example. Why do they need to have a down tier variety? There is enough planes at each BR, and at least that would be good head to head. And people would be ecstatically happy, I think. And essentially, the more we play, the better the matchmaking. Now, isn't that a slogan to have? The more we play, the better the matchmaking. Haven't thought about NVIDIA in this whatsoever, but you get my point. A few optional improvements to add on top, if we so wish. What happened if we said a vehicle with less than 5 modules research should have a lower BR, maybe 0.3 lower? So if you just jumped into your brand new plane at BR 11.3, it got down tier to 11, or got into the matchmaker as 11.0 until you research 5 modules. And that will give you, the player, a little bit of a say on which modules you wanted to have that would give the performance you wanted. And typically there might be 20 modules to research. So, it just gives you a bit of a helping hand just in the start where it's a bit rough. So take the edge off the grind of being stuck. And last but maybe not least, if queuing in as a squad, it's fair enough that you should match squad against other squads. But if they've been waiting for 5 minutes, maybe it's more important to give them a game than the perfect balance of squad versus squad, and just let them in anyway, sort of remove the flag of the status and get them in the game. So this is where I want to end the video, because I want you to think, is that something we want? Should we get Gaiden to do this? Is it worth every time that they write a little post, worth putting a little message in saying, hey guys, when are you going to fix the matchmaker? When are you going to make it more easy to play the game, more enjoyable? It's not easy as such, but more enjoyable is probably the right way to put it. Because it's not enjoyable to have an up tier. I've seen far too many people that also just leave games and leave a team stranded. And sometimes I can understand it. If you, for example, in Naval are jumping into a match and you go into a big map and it's open and you happen to be a coastal boat, well, yeah, not so much fun. And people then just jay out rather than participate because they simply do not want to be up tiered. It's not right, but it's not completely wrong either. But it also showcases that the current system needs to be improved. And for a long time, it probably couldn't be improved. When Gaiden first made the game, low player numbers, etc., etc., it makes sense to have the matchmaker as it is or was. But now that you've got bigger player numbers, well, at least you can do something like that. Make it a matchmaker that adjusts to the amount of people that are playing and make the matchmaking better when it's possible to do so. Enough warbling on. Thank you very much for listening, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye for now.